Welcome along to the Matchbook Weekend Football Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, joined as ever by Mark O'Haire and Adrian Clarke. Adrian, normally we would go straight into the weekend football or maybe talk about last weekend's football podcast, but I can't let this opportunity go without mentioning Lazio's sensational win and somebody on the podcast tipping up Lazio and under 3.5 goals. They called you a madman, Adrian.
Yeah, I did go against the tide. I swam against the tide. It's a strong tide when O'Haire and Delaney are paddling. But yeah, no, I just thought the psychological damage of losing to Leverkusen and just the form really that they showed in that game might be an issue. And yeah, Lazio in my pick in the actual section was under 2.5 as well. So that was a result. I wasn't sure that Lazio would win, but yeah, happy days. It's good to get another long shot on the nose. We've had a few, haven't we?
Yeah, it's been the long shot season for sure. Mark, Adrian never fails to impress you, I'm sure.
Very much so. He called it spot on. Kind of trying to triple screen on Wednesday night by watching QPR away at Stoke as well as the two Champions League games wasn't easy. But I was pretty furious with Harry Kane's poor finish in the first 15-20 minutes of Bayern Munich. If that goes in, it might be a different story, and I'd be the one sort of celebrating at the end of the game. But it wasn't to be, and Bayern's problems continue to mount. Really, Kane's out of form with Leroy Sané's lost all sorts of form and interest in football, it seems, and with Serge Gnabry missing as well as a couple of others. Bayern are looking light in forward areas because Thomas Muller's not his younger self either. So it's quite concerning, that performance away at Lazio. A couple of missed early opportunities, and then from there they didn't really hurt Lazio at all. But
they're still with 3-0 second leg, weren't they?
Yeah, you would expect them to row back into contention in a couple of weeks' time. So we'll see.
It's nice to have something on the line for those second legs. It's been well documented. Not the most exciting ties in the world, but that Bayern Munich versus Lazio second leg will be one to watch to see can they come out fighting. And this could potentially be their last chance of a trophy. 4 games to cover on the Premier League card this week. Some decent fixtures, I have to say. Brentford, Liverpool, Tottenham versus Wolves, Manchester City versus Chelsea, and a fun one at the end, Luton versus Manchester United. All we ask, if you do hit that like button and subscribe wherever you're listening or watching to the podcast, it'll be much appreciated. We will start with the early kickoff here. Jurgen Klopp notoriously doesn't like these, particularly when they're away from home. Brentford 5.7 here. Liverpool 162. The draw is 4.7. Both teams to score yes 1.6. The no is 2.48. The Asian handicap sees Brentford get a 1-goal head start at 194. The goal line here 3.5, but shading towards the under a good bit at 171. So let's start this off with you, Adrian. Liverpool away to Brentford. They've just hit the ropes the last couple of games. I mean, Burnley overall was a good result, but I watched that game and I thought at first half of times they definitely struggled, I have to say.
Yeah, they didn't play well. Still had 25 shots, though. Still had 10 on target. So, when you're not playing well, that's still pretty good effort. It just looked, there's a bit of vulnerability there, wasn't there? Obviously, a couple of players were out missing. Kelleher goal was busier than probably he should have been or was expected. I think the big guns will be back. Obviously, Alisson will be back, and there's word that Salah will be too. So that's a real lift, I think. Szoboszlai as well, probably make the trip as well. So they'll be back to almost full strength, I think, here, Liverpool. And I still fancy them to win the game. I know that Brentford went to Molineux and got a great result. Didn't see that one coming at all. Terrific 2-0 win there, but they don't have a good record this season against the top guys. They've lost all the games against the top 6 so far this season, except the 2-2 draw with Spurs on the opening day of the season. So since August, lost every game they've faced against the real big guns. They're scoring goals, so Tony and Mope are in good nick, and they have a record of scoring at home to Liverpool. 3-1 they won last year, 3-3 the year before. So wouldn't put it past Brentford to get on the score sheet here. But this is Liverpool. They're fighting for the title. This is a massive game. They've got to keep on churning out the wins. And I think with all their forward players available, they'll have too much for Brentford, who are a little bit of a soft touch. They handled City for a bit, didn't they? A half, albeit the goalie was on fire. I just think that the Liverpool will come at them in a similar fashion and eventually scored 2, 3, 4 goals. So that's how I see it. The fact that I can get Liverpool onside at a reasonable price, was it 184, and over 1.5 goals is attractive, because all of Liverpool's wins this season, and they've had a lot of wins this season, none of them have been 1-0. So for me, it's almost like backing Liverpool to win at that price. And yeah, I think they're heavy favourites for a reason. And I believe they'll get their first win at the G-Tech Stadium this time around. I just can't trust Brentford's rear guard like I used to. They don't have that resilience, in my opinion, that they previously did. So yeah, I'm going with the favourites here.
Okay, that's currently 184 Liverpool and over 1.5 goals. Mark, Adrian's not overly convinced Brentford are 100% back, I guess. They have looked good up front with Tony and Mopey, probably the most unlikely partnership you could think of. But the guys, they've been performing very well. Do you give them a squeak here at home to Liverpool?
I think they can cause Liverpool problems. Of course they can, for all the same reasons that Adrian's outlined, really. Going forward, they can be a real menace, as they were last weekend against Wolves in that first half. Neil Mopey, probably a little bit profligate, could have made the most of some good opportunities. Ivan Toney back, scoring goals, enhancing his reputation too. But Brentford's issue so far this season seems to be kind of getting into good positions and letting them go, really. They've scored the first goal in 17 of 23 league games, but dropped 26 points from leading positions, which is incredible, really. And that's not really ideal when you're coming up against a second half side like Liverpool. I think Adrian mentioned that recently, Liverpool's amazing second half record. And if you did want to be bold, potentially something for the long shot segment, but there's a Brentford Liverpool halftime flip flop available at 13.0, which could be of interest. But ultimately, for all the same reasons that Adrian's outlined, I would be pro Liverpool here. He's covered most of what I would have already mentioned. Defensively, they will be stronger for this game with Alisson, Konate and Gomez back. Conor Bradley will be available again. That kind of negates the Alexander-Arnold injury. Robertson started again last week. They have got that free midweek, so the early kickoff slot away from home shouldn't be too much of a bother for Klopp. And going forward, all the big guns. Midfield was a bit of an issue last week. Endo back from the Asian Cup and pushed McAllister further forward, and I think that's the position that works for both pretty well, but it didn't work very well last weekend, so eager to see how that plays out. But Liverpool have returned 16 wins, 4 draws and 0 defeats against sides outside of the top 4 this season. That includes 6 wins from 9 away from home, scoring at least twice in 7 of those 9 away days as well. They have got the ability to outgun Brentford, who defensively last weekend was their first clean sheet since late October. So, I like Brentford. I always think they can be competitive, but Arsenal were narrow winners here in November. City were much more convincing more recently. As Adrian mentioned, their record against the big boys has been found wanting this season, as has their home form. They lost 4 in 30 before a 6-game sample recently, but they've lost 4 of the last 6, including the last 2 when scoring the opening goal as well. So, I think Liverpool will win this game. I'm surprised they're 162. I had them shorter, closer to 1.5 actually to win this game. The way I've gone about it, though, is to add under 4.5 goals. You get a range of good correct scores on your side there. None of Liverpool's away games have featured 5 goals or more, and 10 of Brentford's 12 league losses have arrived with under 4.5 goals as well. And actually that boosts the price from 162 to 222, which is quite a big leap actually for Liverpool to win. And under 4.5 goals, it's not often now these days where Liverpool games escalate into 5 goals or more. If they do, it tends to be at Anfield. So I think they'll do a professional job and stay top of the table this weekend.
Yeah, I want to pick Liverpool under 4.5 goals, but I have Mark's little dig at me last week or on Monday, ringing my ear in the bigger price. But look, it still jumps out to me, and I'm going to stick to my guns. I'm not letting Mark O'Haire affect my decision making on this podcast.
That is a good price. I mean, that is a really good price. I mean,
it is, isn't it?
I'm confident in the over 1.5, but it's a much skinnier price compared to Mark's selection, and equally likely.
Yeah, it allows the Brentford goal as well, doesn't it? You got the 2-1, the 3-1 on side. You're only really in trouble if Brentford score twice or more, I think, which is possible, but I think the price allows that.
And condolences, Mark, to Man City and under 3.5 goals in midweek. Another tough beat on taking on City in the unders.
Yeah, I'll probably say a rude word if I talk about it.
It's okay. When you're up against De Bruyne and Phil Foden in that form, there's always that risk, to be fair. But yeah, Liverpool under 4.5 goals, 2.22. And we'll go to our second game, an exciting new feature coming up on the Match with Betting Exchange. But we'll take a look at the betting firstly that we have on this game. Spurs 158 favourites against Wolves 5.7 away. Draw is available at 5.0. Both teams to score, yes. Heavily favoured 157. And you'd be a brave man backing against that. The Asian handicap sees Spurs laying a goal at 189. The total for this game, another 3.5 unders available at 181. So Match with Betting Exchange is now the only betting exchange in the UK that you can now have the Bet Builder product. So this is a popular feature on sportsbooks, as everyone knows, but you can combine some selections. We still have the markets, the regular markets with Liverpool and under 4.5 goals, but you can combine that in a Bet Builder along with other fun bets. But to take it away here, Mark, I think no better man than yourself, who this might surprise people outside your inner circle, that you will be a regular person that bets regularly on Bet Builder. So maybe explain a little bit of your thinking behind maybe where you can eke out value and using the Match with Betting Exchange for a selection here.
Yeah, so great news to see Matchbook adding on this functionality. Gives you a huge amount of freedom with your selections. You don't have to be restricted to the traditional markets. If you want to, there's opportunity to back corners, to back cards, goals, combinations, etc., and so on. So yeah, I've taken my sort of first dip into it on this particular game. I think I found a nicely priced option here, and I like Bet Builders for a number of reasons. Probably a couple I can't say publicly, but yeah, it just does allow that sort of creative freedom. And often you can obviously find two very strong angles to kind of coincide and bring your bet together for something quite attractive. And I think I've tried to do that here. Now, I've had great fun playing around with this particular game because there's so many options, because I think that's what Spurs allow you to do. They score so many goals, they concede so many goals. You know, we've always talked about their matches being goal heavy. I originally was looking at Spurs to score twice here, Wolves to contribute as well, because the price was 2.0 compared to backing over 2.5 goals and BTTS at 175. And when you're considering the sort of pre-match favourites at 158 to do the heavy lifting, that's a decent increase on just backing BTTS and overs. But I have alternated here. I'm going to back Tottenham to win, and I'm going to back over 39.5 booking points. The reason being, look, Spurs, I've said it for a few weeks now, are the masters of scoring multiple goals. They've done so in 19 of 24 Premier League games, averaging 2.13. They've scored at least twice in 10 of the last 11 in the Premier League. But crucially, too, only Liverpool have won more home league games than Spurs under Postecoglou. And their squad is starting to look really strong again because they got players back from injury and players back from international tournaments. So you saw last week how Son and Brennan Johnson came off the bench to make a difference. In midfield, you've got Bissouma coming into the fold now to sort of battle for places alongside Sarr and Bentancur, Maddison as well. Richarlison's been scoring brilliant goals recently. Timo Werner's contributed. Lo Celso's due back this weekend too. So going forward, they look really, really strong. And defensively, there is still going to be a vulnerability about them because that's just how they play, the aggressive approach under Postecoglou, the risk and reward strategy, which more often than not has paid dividends at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So I think they will score at least twice in this game against Wolves. Wolves can contribute, of course they can. However, the news this midweek about Matheus Cunha being ruled out for the season is a huge blow, a hammer blow. He was just starting to find his best form, probably since leaving the Bundesliga, I would say. He is a terrific player when he's at it. Hwang was missing last week. He should be okay this time around. Pedro Neto's still there for the counter-attacking ability too. But yeah, Wolves have predominantly been a home team this season at Molineux, and they fell way below their standards against Brentford last weekend, were well beaten quite comfortably. Gary O'Neill was quite acceptant of that. They don't often chuck in two wobblies, but I just think if you're going into a gunfight against Tottenham, you need your best players fit and available. There's obviously a question mark over Hwang, and with Cunha missing, that does tip the balance in Tottenham's favour. So I think Tottenham, I'll happily just back them to win the game now, alongside over 39.5 booking points. Anthony Taylor is the referee here. He's averaging 5.32 cards. Spurs and Wolves are amongst the dirtiest teams in the division, averaging 2.7 cards minimum each, which is very, very strong. And if you look at the actual market we're playing here in terms of cards, over 39.5 booking points, which is effectively 4 cards each. 10 of Spurs' 11 home games have featured 4 cards or more. 10 of Wolves' 12 away games have featured 4 cards or more. So really, really strong stats in both metrics there, as well as the home win. And it tallies up. I haven't got the price to hand now. It was close to even, I think it was. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's a really nice option to boost the price on Spurs to win this game. But also, you could have so much fun with this game with goals included as well. Tottenham to score at least twice, Wolves to score, etc., and so on. Just get on Matchbook, have a play around, and enjoy. It's good fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a play around, as Mark alluded to there. These bet builder markets are currently available in the UK only, but we're working on getting the Irish market added.
Why is it 10 points? Why is it 10 points for a booking rather than 1?
10 for a yellow, 25 for a red. So
they just want to
if
make
a player
it
was to
bigger.
get 2 yellows and a red, it would be 35 points. So yeah, that's just, don't ask me. It's been around probably since before my time actually on the spreads. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll lock that in. So as Mark alluded to there, essentially you're backing 4 yellow cards in the game and a Tottenham win at around the 191 market. Play around on that bet builder product on the Matchbook betting exchange, the only exchange currently that product is available. Adrian, take it away. And now this bet here is a staple diet for Tottenham Hotspur matches this season, but the price still appeals to me. It looks rather big.
Well, that's what I thought. That's why I picked it, really. I probably would have picked it if it was a lot shorter. It's 2.8 for Tottenham Hotspur to win and for both teams to score. And it is a staple. It's a bet that lands an awful lot of the time for matches involving Postecoglou's Spurs on their own patch. So, well, home or away, really. Wolves are always worth a goal. Yeah, they're so bold. I agree with Mark. The Cunha threat is going to diminish them for sure. I think Hwang might be available, but Hwang's more of a finisher, in my opinion, than someone that makes things happen in the way that Cunha does. So there's so much you're going to rest on Neto, who's obviously being linked with all the big teams this summer. Really like Neto. And I think his duel with Destiny Udogie is going to be fantastic to watch, actually. I can see Neto getting some joy. Wolves have had success against Spurs. I think they've won. Tottenham have lost 3 of their last 4 Premier League games against Wolves. Wolves have won at the stadium. So they might regard them as a little bit of a bogey team, but I think everything's sort of wiped clear with Postecoglou and the Ange ball that he produces. And it just screams goals, doesn't it? And look, Wolves aren't brilliant at the back. They obviously let in 2 against Brentford last weekend, 2 against Chelsea when they won. Scored 4 goals, of course, at the Bridge, but still let in 2. And then they let in 4 against Manchester United in that classic at Molineux. So you can't trust them, I don't think, to keep this rampant Spurs at bay. And I agree with Mark again on the depth. It is a massive thing. And he can just say to the players now, give me an hour, give me 65, 70 minutes, give me everything you got in the tank. And then I'm bringing on 2 players that are just as good as you. So yeah, they were good enough late on in against Spurs, but that's going to really help them, I think, in the coming weeks. So yeah, I think Spurs will outscore Wolves in the game. 2-1, 3-1, 3-2, something like that.
Okay, well, that's 2.82 currently on the Matchbook betting exchange. That's available on your regular main market site, but you can, of course, combine on bet builders for Irish customers. A lot of these markets will still be available for you in the main section. We'll lock in Mark to make his debut with the bet builders. Tottenham and over 39.5 booking points, 191. And lasting on what you both said, it's interesting. Spurs have 14 games left of the season. Manchester City up to 24, 25, 26. It's such a massive difference. It'll be interesting to see if that makes a bit of difference, but it will mean Spurs will be going all out in every single game, 100%. Manchester City versus Chelsea, 5:30 game on Saturday. Let's take a look at the betting that we currently have on the Matchbook betting exchange. City 137 favourites, Chelsea 9.4 away. The draw is 6.0. Both teams to score, yes, a lot bigger price here, 179. The Asian handicap line sees Chelsea get a 1.5 goal head start at 194. And the total for this game is 3.5, 178 for the under. Adrian, look, Chelsea this season, I think that Palace game sort of sums it up. They were second best for large spells of it, but managed to get what would look like a massive victory, a couple of late goals, big moments in front of their away fans. Is there anything they can take from that game into this game to maybe cause City 1 or 2 problems?
Well, yeah, a bit of confidence. I mean, it's good for Conor Gallagher to get himself on the score sheet. He's played well this season without sort of contributing anywhere near enough goals, from the position that he plays in. Gusto looks really good at the moment. He's flying. I thought he was their best player by a mile, really. So, yeah, they'll take a bit of heart. I mean, wasn't that good at halftime, was it? I mean, Pochettino's face was very miserable. They weren't playing well at all. And they had one shot, I think. It took them a long, long time to even register a shot on goal. So I'm not buying into the fact that Chelsea are suddenly brilliant. I've still got fresh memories of how they played at Anfield, which was a car crash, really, in a defensive capacity. They were absolutely annihilated. And now they've got to go to the Etihad, and I don't really feel that confident that they can avoid the same kind of fate, really. I just feel that City, the way that they're performing at the moment, can score multiple goals against Chelsea. Chelsea have only kept one clean sheet in 19 Premier League meetings against City. They're a team that they tend to struggle to beat. There was that 4-4 draw, mind you, earlier on in the season. I mean, it feels a long, long time ago, doesn't it? Absolute mad game, but I think that caught City at a good time, and I think right now is not a good time for anyone to play against Manchester City. Look, they've not lost any of the last 22 at home, 118, drawn 4. Newcastle are the only team that stopped City scoring at least 2 goals this season on home turf as well. So, you're looking at City, not guaranteed, nothing's ever a guarantee, but almost guaranteed to score at least a couple of goals. They've won by 2 goals. Manchester City won by at least 2 goals 11 times this season as well. So I just think that they're going to have too much for Chelsea, who might be worth a goal. Cole Palmer on his return, Raheem Sterling as well will be eager if he gets a game. They will try and press, and maybe they can nick the ball high up the pitch and slip one of their forwards in and Kunku or something to get themselves a goal. But a lot of this match is going to be played in Chelsea's half, and I just don't fancy their goalkeeper and back four to contain City. I just don't. I mean, I said the same when Man United went to Anfield and they got a 0-0. So you never quite know. But my feeling is that City's attack will be way too hot for what I think is a really mediocre Chelsea defence to contain. So I think I'm going to go with City, and I'm going to pair it with over 2.5 goals just to take us into a friendlier price at 1.83.
Okay, we'll lock that in. Mark, you're on very similar lines here, but being a little bit more aggressive. So I sense that you're a little bit more impressed with Chelsea going forward, or at least think similar to Adrian, but maybe more so that they can nick a goal.
Yeah, I think they can, of course, nick a goal. For all Chelsea's flaws and issues and criticisms, which they've been quite rightfully receiving this season, they still do have some top quality players in their ranks. Christopher Nkunku, Cole Palmer, these are very good players. Sterling can turn it on. Madueke is better than perhaps we've seen him so far. Midfield of Enzo Fernandez, Caicedo, Conor Gallagher. They're not your average kind of mid-table dross. These are players who can perform, but trying to predict when that might be has been quite tricky. More often than not, it hasn't been away from Stamford Bridge. I saw them absolutely bulldozed by Liverpool at Anfield recently. And if you look at their away results against the better teams in the division, more often than not, they're going down with a bit of a whimper. However, they have been scoring in those games as well. Scored at Liverpool. Obviously, the 4-1 at Spurs was difficult to sort of assess because of the red cards. Scored and defeated United, scored and defeated Newcastle, scored and defeated West Ham, scored and defeated Wolves. So it's a script that kind of carries on occurring for Chelsea, kind of being beaten up away from home, but managing to nick a goal because they have got pace, they have got quality who could cause problems. But yeah, ultimately, I've got very little faith in them being able to sort of stop the City juggernaut. We saw Everton frustrate them for well over an hour last weekend at the Etihad. And that's kind of Everton's DNA under Sean Dyche. I can't see Chelsea kind of replicating that approach, that style. And even if they tried to, I just cannot see them sort of fulfilling the same sort of levels of performance. Like Adrian, I share the same sort of worries about them defensively too. Well, they've been a bit of a shambles recently, considering there's 4 goals to Liverpool and Wolves in recent matches. 7 of their 12 hosts have scored at least twice against them. It's difficult to see City not scoring at least twice here. But in terms of Chelsea scoring themselves, they have scored in 16 of the last 18 in the Premier League. They've scored in 10 of 12 away. And City's clean sheet record just doesn't fill you with confidence at all. 4 clean sheets in 21 Premier League games now. They started the campaign with back-to-back shutouts. Since then, it's 4 and 21. They've conceded in 7-11 at the Etihad as well. So just doing a simple maths, really. The price of 2.8 on Man City to win and BTTS just looks too big for me. It's a massive, massive leap on City to win the game, which is 137. BTTS, as you said, is trading around 1.8. If you multiplied the two together, you'd be getting about a 2.5 shot. Now, I know that's not the correct way to sort of engineer prices and sort of trade games, but even still, that leaves you with a decent deficit between 2.5 and where the market is at 2.8. So yeah, if you're backing BTTS at 1.8, why aren't you not backing Man City to win this and BTTS at 2.8? It's just, that's my thinking. It's just too big a price to leave out there. So I'll be having that for my preferred selection.
Okay, yeah, that's a good case, Mark. We're going to lock in City and both teams to score. Yes, 2.8, big price, but Adrian's selection, the safest option, City and over 2.5 goals. Let's move on to Super Sunday and the main event, Luton versus Manchester United. Let's take a look at the betting that we currently have on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. You can back Luton 4.4 at home to Manchester United, 183. The draw is 4.2. Both teams to score yes is 163. No is available at 248. Asian handicap line sees Luton get a 3/4 goal head start at 1.9. And the total for this is 2.5, shaded towards the over. Adrian, might go back to you first on this one because you've got quite a fun bet here. What did you make of United though away to Aston Villa? Because not that they didn't get the credit they deserve, but I thought they dug it out well. Arguably and probably Villa were the better team, but Manchester United managed to get a really good victory. They're coming into this in a bit of form. That 183 seems quite big in some cases.
I can see why some people would say that. I wasn't blown away by them, and I think Villa were the better team between both boxes, but United were better inside the final third, weren't they? I don't think there's any doubt about that. So, that was the difference on the day. It's a good result, and they are improving, and their forward line is clicking. It's functioning better than it has at any other stage this season. So, kudos to them. They've got players in form, Højlund and Garnacho and Rashford, McTominay coming off the bench to make the difference. So, there are positives around Manchester United, but I'm not at the stage where I can fully trust them yet. And this one could really belong in the long shot section, I guess. But I just feel it could be a draw. I feel that Luton have what it takes to get a draw. They got one, of course, against Liverpool. I'm thinking draw on BTTS. It takes the price to 5.2, which is lovely. And look, both teams to score is at a really slim price. So, people do fancy Luton to get on the score sheet, and then it's a matter of can they contain United and keep their attack down to maybe only one. Well, look, this bet did land at home to Liverpool. It landed at home to Wolves. It very, very nearly landed at home to Arsenal, at home to Manchester City, and at home to Chelsea too when they launched that stirring fight back in the second half. So, we could be sat here with a load of high scoring draws at Kenilworth Road this season. They've scored in all but one home game, by the way. The only one they blanked in was Spurs very early on in the campaign. United, for what it's worth, they've scored in all 6 away games against the bottom half. Won 5 of those games. So this is the type of fixture Ten Hag's players have been winning, have been scoring in them. But I just think that this is an awkward game. It's always going to be awkward, I think, for opponents. Rob Edwards will be fuming at the way they blew it against Sheffield United. And this will be more of a match that maybe suits Luton, where they have less of the ball, where they can be compact, where they can be aggressive in tighter spaces rather than having all of the possession and leaving gaps at the back that Sheffield United exploited. So I think it's the type of match that Luton would prefer. Their set piece threat is still massive. ginormous. And United's set piece XGA, expected goals against from set pieces, is the second worst in the division. They're not good at defending set plays, Manchester United. So I do think that Luton will really have them worried from corners and wide free kicks. So yeah, look, for me, I'm back in here the 1-1 or the 2-2, I guess. Maybe the 3-3. Can't quite see that. But yeah, drawing both teams to score at 5.2. It's a fun one to follow. That, you know, so it's a bet that will stay alive, I would imagine, for a lot of the game too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those, if there's one goal in it, there's always that chance of this bet landing. 5.2 seems a little bit big. Mark, you're going to combine this again in our new Bet Builder product. So back to the booking point system, the last one you went with, just total for the match, essentially backing 4 yellow cards. Here, you're sort of looking at both teams. So I'm guessing you're eyeing up a lot of different players for yellow cards here.
Yeah, I mean, this is a fascinating match. I believe this is the kind of game this weekend where any potential score or any potential outcome is on the table. And I love that sort of element of unpredictability, really. So I do believe there will be goals, as Adrian does too. And I think both teams to score is quite rightfully short. So how can we kind of engineer a better price? So what I've done is basically back both teams to receive a card, both teams to collect over 9.5 booking points alongside BTTS, which gets us to 1.88. You know, BTTS has been well covered there by Adrian. What I'd say is, you know, Luton have scored in the last 11. They've scored 19 of 23 overall this season, which is an incredible output. It's up there with the likes of like Liverpool and Arsenal in terms of their hit rate for scoring in games. And as he says, they've only failed to score once at home all season. And they've really grown into the campaign as well. If you look at their attacking metrics, they've taken a real hike in the last third of the campaign. Shots, XG, on-target efforts, etc. They scored twice or more in 4 of the last 6 as well. So, and at Kenilworth Road, we've seen more than enough evidence now to suggest that they can not just score but run United close here. Since November, they've beaten Palace, Newcastle, Brighton, pushed Chelsea, Arsenal, and City close at Kenilworth Road. So they'll be confident they can do some damage here. I completely agree. I think this game suits them much more down to the ground than playing the likes of their fellow promoted clubs or Forest or Everton down there, where they're expected to take the initiative. This suits their style much better. And for Manchester United, there's been a lot of talk about United turning the corner. United are back, 5 wins from 6 across all comps, 3 straight wins in the Premier League. But I still haven't got the confidence in them to back them at odds on away at Luton, because you look closer at those games beyond the result, and they've not been as convincing. I thought Villa were the better of the 2 teams last week. They nearly coughed up that win at Wolves in the last minute. They conceded 17 shots at Newport with their best available 11 out that day. And the West Ham game wasn't a 3-0 match either. West Ham had opportunities in that game. So, sure, if they're getting a lot of confidence back, especially in forward areas, I think the midfield is starting to function much better now that Casemiro looks fitter. Kobe Mainoo's making a really good impression there. It's allowing Bruno Fernandes the license to get forward. But defensively, key injuries again continue to blight, and I just have very little defensive faith in them as a defensive unit to stay strong. What I would say, though, if you are really keen on United, I'm not, but if you are, their record under Ten Hag against the lesser lights is really, really strong. He's won all 9 games against promoted clubs. His record since the start of last season, when he came into the position at United against bottom half teams, home and away, is 24 wins from 32, which is really, really strong. It's up against the big boys where United tend to toil. So, I think United absolutely can get on the score sheet here, possibly score a couple of goals, but I wouldn't put Luton, I wouldn't discount Luton from doing something similar here either. So, yeah, BTTS, both teams to be booked. Each team have been carded at least once in 83% of their Premier League fixtures this season, which is pretty strong. But the sort of icing on the cake here is the refereeing appointment of David Coote. He is averaging 5.23 cards per game from 13 league assignments. He's a really good appointment if you like your cards. So again, on the Bet Builder, there'll be various ways to bolster the BTTS price. You can go down the same route as I went at Spurs and just back over 39.5. But I'm just kind of keeping it relatively simple here by backing both teams to collect a card.
Okay, currently priced at around 188 on the Bet Builder product. An Adrian selection, you can of course do that on a Bet Builder, but it is available in the main market section. A draw and both teams to score. So that's match result and both teams to score. Yes, and Adrian, I think 5.2. I think we're going to lock that in. as the selection here. So well played on the case there. I just see a 1-1, 2-2, and like you said, the bet will always be alive, Mark O'Haire. So yeah, draw on both teams to score.
I mean, what I said last week, you've already sort of referenced it this week. There's no better example of that strategy than this particular game. So it's been noted down for the next week.
It has. Well,
I'm just going to rocket in some 25-1 shots in every game.
Oh, that looks a big price, Mark. Yeah, that looks a big price. Let's lock that in. Available, all bets that the guys put up is available on insights.matchbook.com, or just search Matchbook Insights in your browser. Mark O'Haire, straight back to you. League 2 this season, Stockport have been the best team in the league by far. You're expecting goals when they travel away to Tranmere.
They have been the best team, but I'm not going to say they're having a bit of a wobble, but they've not been as convincing or as super strong as they were perhaps through the autumn and early winter. In the last 13 league games, they've only won 5 times since mid-November, and they've only kept 3 clean sheets in that sample. That includes a midweek defeat at home to Crewe, 3-1. Now, Crewe are going great guns in the top 6, top 7 themselves. So, it's not a disaster, but quite a surprise to see the Hatters beaten in that fashion at Edgeley Park. And I do expect them to put in a strong performance away at Tranmere. We spoke quite positively about Tranmere in mid-January, but they've dropped off quite a fair bit since then. 4 defeats in the last 6. They're still well clear of danger, but midweek they did have a bit of a disaster, really. Raced into a 2-0 lead at home to Morecambe, ended up losing that game 3-2, conceding a stoppage time penalty in the second half. So they'll be hurting. It's now just 5 clean sheets for Tranmere across the whole campaign. Very difficult to see them shutting out Stockport on Saturday, considering Stockport have been nilled just once in 14 away games. They scored twice or more in 10 of those 14 away games. But yeah, just backing goals in this game appeals the most. Over 2.5 goals at 197. Tranmere have actually scored in 14 of 16 at Prenton Park. They've scored twice or more in 11 of those. 13 of those 16 have gone over. Whereas Stockport, I mentioned their goal scoring record, they've only kept 2 clean sheets in 14 away from home, which is quite a surprise for a team leading the League 2 standings right now. 12 of those 14 away have seen BTTS. 11 of those 14 away have gone over. It's a big game. They'll get a strong support, as they tend to do. It's only, 45 minutes, an hour away to Tranmere from Stockport, and the Rovers fans, I'm sure, will be out in force. Should be a good atmosphere. I expect both teams to contribute and play their part in a goal-heavy game, and I think overs is being slightly underrated here, so happy to get involved.
Okay, 197 the current price on the Matchbook betting exchange. Adrian, I'm excited for these 2 selections in the Championship. Caught a good bit of Southampton's away trip to Bristol City, them losing. That's probably given the impetus a little bit to Leeds United and Ipswich Town, and you want both on side in the Championship this weekend.
Yeah, look, they were both brilliant in midweek. I was at Swansea to see them absolutely wipe the floor with Swansea. It was, Leeds was so good. 3-0 up very early on in the game. They toyed with them, really. Could have had 7 or 8 quite comfortably, and Swansea could have had no complaints. So quick in forward areas. Nonto, Somerville, Dan James, Ruter. But as a team, they look very, very solid at the moment, Leeds. 7 straight wins, 6 of them with clean sheets, 6-0. So they're flying. I've seen them in the flesh a few times this season, and they've been good, very, very good every time except for one, and that was at West Bromwich Albion. Plymouth, I think, will try and play. They'll try and, they've got Ian Foster in. They'll look to go and hurt Leeds, and I do think that might make it even easier for Leeds to play around them, because they're all about the turnovers. It's like, you have it, bang, we win it, we break on you, you can't catch us, we score. That's kind of how it works in a lot of games. And I can see that happening here. They met in the FA Cup recently. It was a game on TV, and it was quite a close game, but it was basically Plymouth's main team against Leeds reserves. They brought on all the big dogs towards the end of the game, and they won comfortably in extra time, Leeds. So I do think with Leeds, knowing they need to keep on winning, they look highly motivated to me. I think they'll go to Plymouth and have too much for them and win the game. I'm pairing it with over 2.5 goals because of Leeds' firepower. That goes pretty much without saying. But Plymouth home games average 4.2 per game. It's the highest in the Championship. 71% of matches at home park have gone over 2.5 goals. Plymouth themselves have scored in 25 of 31 matches this season. 4 of their last 6 games have gone over 3.5. So they've been involved in some quite exciting matches. And Plymouth have scored in every game under Ian Foster, and they've actually scored in 10 straight games. So I think the clean sheet record might be under threat for Leeds, but I just see them scoring 2, 3, 4 goals themselves. So yeah, Leeds and over 2.5 for me, and it's close to even money.
Yeah, and a similar price too for Ipswich Town. Again, another impressive midweek win. It seemed a crucial week for both Leeds and Ipswich.
Massive, yeah. Look, Southampton had a hard game at Bristol City. I thought that might be one they slipped up in, but the nature of how they lost wasn't great. I know that a lot of Southampton supporters are really disappointed. So how are they going to react? And they've got West Brom, by the way, on Friday night, and West Brom are capable of winning that game. They've beaten a lot of the top sides already this season. So there could be extra incentive here for Leeds and Ipswich to take full advantage if they drop points at the Hawthorn. So yeah, it's a massive weekend. As I said, I saw Swansea in the flesh and they weren't good. Really poor. Trying to be expansive, but just look well short to me and particularly sluggish in defence. Ipswich are bright and breezy. They're a lovely team to watch themselves. Got good talent in forward areas. And they've got a terrific record against teams that are 10th or below. They've played 19 Ipswich, won 15 and drawn 4, I think. Yeah, I've got 5 on my notes. That doesn't add up to 19. I think they might have drawn 5 and won 14 actually against the teams 10th or below. So the Swansea are very, very much that. So I'd back them to go there and win the game. They've got a lot of forwards fit and available at the moment. The bench is strong. If plan A isn't working, they just bring on the cavalry. Kiefer Moore, there's a strong narrative there, obviously. Big Welshman, Cardiff linked. And yeah, I can see him hurting Swansea, particularly in this game. So they've lost their last 3 home games as well, the Swans, to Leeds, Plymouth and Southampton. So if Leeds and Southampton can go there and win, so can Ipswich Town. And this is a scary stat for Swansea. 7 games against the top 4 this season. Obviously, we know about the top 4. They're all brilliant. But Swansea have conceded 24 goals in those 7 games, never less than 3. If that pattern continues, then they're not winning this game. So, yeah, Ipswich on the nose, just under even. I think it's good value. I really do. This is a team that's riding high.
Yeah, it's like if you can really back the top 4 against the rest of the division, these are good ample opportunities at decent prices. So Leeds and over 2.5 goals, 195. Ipswich available on the nose at 196. Mark, you're going against Atletico Madrid this week, so take it away with this case.
This was very nearly my long shot actually to back Las Palmas to go to the Metropolitano and win, which might surprise people considering Atleti are 11 wins from 12 unbeaten home league games so far this season, which is understandably exceptional. But Las Palmas at 8.2 on Matchbook to win this match, which does them a little bit of a disservice. On Atletico, because that's the reason for the majority of this selection, which is Las Palmas plus 1.25. Atleti just going through a sticky patch at the minute. A stoppage time goal was needed to beat Rayo recently at the end of January, out of form Rayo. They then scored very late on themselves to pinch a bit of an undeserved draw in the derby against Real. Since then, they've lost back-to-back games 1-0 at home to Athletic in the Copa del Rey, and then last weekend away at Sevilla, who were struggling. Sevilla basically beat them up in that game. And Alvaro Morata picked up an injury in that game too, and he's been quite crucial to them this season. So I'm wondering how they might cope without him. Obviously, Griezmann's still there doing wonderful things on a week-to-week basis, but Depay hasn't really settled or shown us what he's really capable of consistently either. So their recent form has been a little bit iffy. They failed to fire in the last 2, really. I watched the game against Athletic in the Copa, and Athletic really nullified them that day. And I think Las Palmas are more than capable of sort of doing a similar job on any team in this division. But possibly more so considering Atletico are playing Inter on Tuesday in the Champions League. So perhaps there'll be an eye elsewhere on that game. Perhaps they could be caught off guard here. Las Palmas obviously don't have the same distractions, haven't been involved in Copa del Rey action in the last couple of weeks either, so they'll be well rested. They're in the top half, and they've given most of the big boys real headaches this season. They beat Atleti in the reverse game in the Canaries. They were beating Real Madrid before 2 late goals turned the tide. They were beating Barcelona before a stoppage time penalty sort of turned the tide there as well. They've lost very narrowly at Athletic, at Betis, at Girona as well. They've only lost by 2 goals or more once all season. That was at the Bernabeu back in September, which kind of shows how competitive they can be. And if they can kind of enhance that record further this weekend, we'll get a nice little payout, because Las Palmas plus 1.25 means we make profit as long as they don't lose by at least 2 goals or more. So, yeah, I just think the price here is a little bit disrespectful. I think they're more than good enough to stay very close and competitive with an Atletico side who perhaps might be looking elsewhere, shall we say.
Okay, yeah, 8.4 currently on the Match of Betting Exchange. If you want to back that fun bet, Las Palmas available at 7.0 in general on the sportsbook, so serious value there. The official bet for Mark is plus 1.25 at 193. Long shots time here, Adrian Clarke. Take it away with a correct score here. Currently 7.2 this bet is versus 6.5 on the sportsbooks.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's still the shortest match result price around. So, you know, people think that this is going to be the score. It's Preston 1, Blackburn Rovers 1. You can see it happening, can't you? It's the Lancashire derby. It's going to be gritty. They really don't like one another. It was 1-1 in the first match, right up until injury time when Preston got a winner at Ewood Park. So, yeah, I can see both teams scoring. It's not going to be that pretty. Blackburn have got John Eustace, new manager. He's going to make them. He's playing with a back 5 or a back 3, and he's going to make them harder to beat, which they need to be. And he's going to turn them into a counter-attacking side, and that worked for them really well against Stoke. Not so well against Birmingham in midweek, where they lost 1-0. So yeah, I can see them playing on the counter-attack, but also Preston are not a possession side. So who's going to take the initiative here? Or is it going to be somewhere in between? Both teams going to be in a place that's a little bit uncomfortable for them in terms of having the ball, so having more of the ball than they want. So I can see both teams cancelling each other out. I can see a lot of fouls, a lot of booking points. I should have looked at that ahead of this one for a bet builder or something. I think this will be quite fiery. Yeah, so Rovers have conceded 1 goal in both matches under Eustace. Preston aren't big scorers. You don't know what's going on with them. They have won 3 on the spin though, but they're missing a couple of key players for this game: Brad Potts and Andrew Hughes. Clean sheets are very, very slim on the ground for both clubs. Actually, Blackburn have had just 4 all season. Preston have only had 5. That ranks them second and third worst, respectively, behind Rotherham. So you can't bank on them shutting the other team out, but neither I would say are absolutely prolific. And when you put it all together in a derby game where it's going to be a little bit aggressive and ugly, I can just see maybe both teams registering and pushing for the winner, but maybe secretly being happy enough with the point. So yeah, I think Preston versus Blackburn, 1 apiece, is winking at me.
Yeah, those correct score markets really competitively priced on the Match of Betting Exchange. 7.2 currently for Preston versus Blackburn 1-1. Mark, Fulham on both teams to score to beat Aston Villa here. So take it away. Is it pro Fulham, anti Aston Villa, or maybe a little bit of both?
Yeah, probably a bit of both, but probably more anti Aston Villa actually. But yeah, I wanted to be with Fulham for a couple of reasons. I just think they're being underrated here, and I think Villa are being overrated. And I've kind of sounded the alarm gently on Aston Villa in recent weeks and not really gotten too heavily involved in that. Bar that demolition away at Sheffield United, I think their performances have been iffy at best for a while now. Now, obviously, the wins over City and Arsenal were huge highlights of their season, but they were running quite hot during that early period too. And since then, they struggled to get those 4 points at home to Burnley and Blades. They were knocked out of the FA Cup pretty limply at home to Chelsea. The 2 defeats to United, conceding lots of goals in both, were totally outplayed at home by Newcastle. Pretty dull, pretty lifeless in the 0-0 away at Everton. If you go further back, the win away at Brentford wasn't convincing at all. They were lucky to pick up a point at Bournemouth too. So for me, it's been quite a while since they kind of rocked the house, really. And I think injuries in key areas are biting hard now. We knew Konza was out for quite a while. He'd been playing really well. This week, they've lost Boubacar, Kamara, and Diego Carlos as well. Now, that means McGinn's going to have to drop deeper, be in a bit more defensive role. They're going to have to reshuffle a little bit. They're big blows. I think Kamara has been the understated star of Villa's season in that sort of destroyer position. Without him, they've struggled really badly. If you look at the 4 league games he's missed, they've conceded 8 goals. 3 of those goals came in the 2 home matches against Burnley and Sheffield United when they were awful. So, small samples. But, yeah, I mean, there were elements last week against United where they looked good. Losing that match was a little bit unfair on the balance of play. But I just think considering the players missing and the longer-term downturn, they shouldn't be 2.3 at Fulham, who... Fulham, can be a little bit erratic and inconsistent, but largely they've been good at Craven Cottage. Obviously downed Arsenal here not that long ago. They've won 6 of the last 9 at Craven Cottage. They scored 3 goals or more in 5 of those 6 wins as well. And only 6 teams have won more often at home than Fulham. So they'll fancy their chances. Obviously got Armando Broja in the club now on loan. Rodrigo Muniz is contributing in forward areas. His pace and physicality caused lots of problems last week. Willian's creativity is a real plus. And crucially, too, they get Bassi and Adarabioyo and Iwobi back this weekend, too. So team news-wise, they're looking pretty good, whereas Aston Villa, you couldn't say the same. So I thought Fulham as underdogs at 3.15 was just too big. So to boost the price to 5.4, just include BTTS, it's not too often Villa are shut out completely. So, happy to be with the Cottagers this weekend.
Okay, 5.4, the current price, Fulham and both teams to score. Best bet time, Adrian, and it's the Arsenal. So say no more. Case closed.
It just leapt out at me off the page, I guess. Backing Arsenal on the handicap here at Turf Moor, flying obviously at the moment with the win at West Ham, the Palace win, winning at Bogey Ground, Nottingham Forest. They're at it. Definitely, there's a spring in Arsenal's step, and I think they're looking forward to every game at the moment. Yes, they've got this trip to Portugal on the horizon in the Champions League, so we might see 1 or 2 alterations, I guess, to the starting 11, but they'll go pretty strong here, I would imagine. They've got a perfect winning record so far this season. Arsenal against the bottom 8, scored 28 goals in those 10 wins against the bottom 8. So lots and lots of goals, a few clean sheets in there as well. Away from home, Arsenal are good at keeping clean sheets, 5 from 12 away matches so far this season. From a tactical point of view, I think set pieces could be massive here. Arsenal, as we know, are the strongest team in the country at the moment at that. Burnley are the worst in the Premier League. Poor James Trafford, good young keeper, promising, but there's a fragility there, and they're extremely nervous, Burnley, whenever a corner or a wide free kick is sent into the box, and Arsenal won't disappoint. Then they'll swing it into that 6-yard box and really test him. So that could be something to look out for. Burnley are playing better going forward. I don't think there's any arguments about that. It's a bit brighter from them for Fana and Mdouni. They're doing okay. But Burnley, in a good performance at Anfield, still faced 25 shots, 10 shots on target, and still lost 3-1. So I think Arsenal can win by 2 or more goals here. This bet has landed in 7 of 8 games that Burnley have played against the top 5 this season. So all the big cheeses have won by 2 or more goals against Burnley, apart from 1. So 7 of 8 have landed. Liverpool have gone to Turf Moor and won by 2. So have City, Spurs, Villa, Chelsea, Palace, and Everton. They've all gone to that ground and won by a margin that will see this handicap overcome. And I think Arsenal are good enough to do that. So 1.95, I like the price.
Okay, 195, Arsenal minus 1.5. Mark, final word to you. Best bet if you had to have one on the weekend card.
In pure value terms, I've got to go to France on Sunday afternoon. I'll avoid all the silly and lame puns, but looking at Brest in Ligue 1, for me, they look really undervalued at home to Marseille, around 2.8 to win the game. You can get them 195 off a scratch, 0 start on the Asian handicap. Basically, draw no bet. That really does appeal. Coming into the campaign, they were expected to be in a relegation battle. They lost their star forward, lost a number of experienced players in defence, very little resources to kind of replenish those losses. But Eric Roy, the manager and the sporting director and team there, have done a remarkable job of basically putting together a squad of underrated, undervalued players who play a pretty functional and uncompromising style, but they're very difficult to beat. So to get them 195, basically draw no bet here, is really attractive. They are 4th in Ligue 1. They're only 2 points off Nice in 2nd. They've only lost 4 games all season. 1 defeat in 10 at home. That was a defeat by a 1-goal margin against PSG. They've conceded just 18 goals in 21 league games and kept 9 clean sheets. At home, they have kept 6 clean sheets from 9, if you exclude that game against PSG. The recent form is very good, unbeaten since November's international break, which includes drawing away at PSG, holding Nice to a home goalless draw. And looking at the underlying metrics, I've got them ranked 4th best at home. So they're very much there on merit at the minute. And whilst they're going great guns, I wouldn't even say they're overachieving, but certainly are in terms of where their pre-season expectations were. Marseille have been anything but. Their metrics have looked all right for the most part, but they've just been really, really underwhelming. They've dropped down to 8th. They've failed to win the last 5, failed to win 9 of 10 away games. That includes 5 defeats from 7 winless matches at teams above the bottom 4. They've only scored 11 goals in those 10 away games, and they get to keep a clean sheet on their travels. So they also got Gennaro Gattuso, basically on borrowed time there. It looks like a matter of time before he will lose his job. And they're also involved in Thursday night Europa League action in Hamburg when they play Shakhtar Donetsk. So they're going to be fatigued from that. Very quick turnaround to Sunday afternoon, having to travel to Brest, who will be incredibly well prepared and incredibly difficult to beat. So, as I say, Brest have lost once at home. That was to PSG. Marseille have won once away, and they've only scored 11 away goals and yet to keep an away clean sheet. Yet we're getting Brest draw no bet at 195. If Brest's name was, I don't know, Rennes or Lyon or Monaco, they would not be this price. So I think they're underrated. Happy to get involved there. Great value.
Okay, currently 195 draw no bet. We are done for today. My thanks to Mark and Adrian. Adrian, quick comment here from a YouTube listener who said that they were there when you made your matchbook betting podcast debut. I presume that's what they're talking about here. So when was that? How long ago was that?
What's that? What did they say? When they say? I can't read that. Some say they were there when they scored. I need my glasses to see that. Hang on a sec. Some say they were there when JJ scored. Others say they were there when AC made his debut. I was there for both. Good to hear it. Good to hear it. We didn't win though. We didn't win that game. So I came off the bench and QPR won that game. But got my revenge for my full debut against the Hoops the year later when we won 3-0. And played well in that game. So good memories. Good to have you along.
And when was your matchbook debut?
Matchbook debut? I don't know. I reckon I've been doing this 5 years, I say. Yeah, 5 or 6 years now. It's a long time ago. I can't remember it. I have to be honest. But your predecessor, Sully, will have been at the wheel. I'm pretty sure of that.
Sully at the wheel. Mark, you've been doing this a long time. Can you remember your debut? It's 6-7 years ago then, isn't it?
It might be more than that. My real matchbook debut kind of goes beyond Sully. Those years actually, dabbled in a few shows and then kind of went away and came back when Sully was at the wheel. So
when Sully came back with the big bucks, he returned.
Lured me in.
We are gracious that you guys will be doing this ever consistently for years and years, and long may it continue. But my thanks to Mark and Adrian. We'll be back with Miguel Delaney on the Champions League podcast on Monday, so do join us then live or get it in your podcast feed around Monday afternoon. Other than that, enjoy the weekend's football. We'll chat to you on Monday. Bye bye.